So, welcome everyone to Kitchen Convos once again. Kitchen Conversations coming to you from my kitchen. And today I'm going to be going to Duran Chavis in Richmond, Virginia. I'm really excited about this conversation. We're going to be talking about food justice. What does that mean? What kind of difference does that make? We're going to be talking to Duran about all of that. And I'm really excited because this is somebody who's made this his life's work to talk about that. So just to give you a bit of background, of course, we've been having this conversation in the US and around the world about racial injustice, sadly, again, since the tragic death of George Floyd. And this is not a new conversation in the US. It's a conversation that keeps being had again and again. But it gives us an opportunity to talk about it again and raise awareness again across many different aspects. And one of the aspects that I wanted to talk about is food security and food justice, because people of color and people in communities of color have less access to proper food. What does that mean? They can't feed themselves, their families, and what kind of ramifications does that have for the community? So that's what we're going to be talking to Duran about, who is an urban farmer. He is a food activist who's been doing this for 2 decades, and he's the founder of Happily Natural Day. We'll talk to him about that. So I'm going to add him on just now. Hang on 2 seconds. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you're joining. And this is a really interesting conversation and a really important conversation. So, hi, Duran.
Hey, peace. How you doing?
How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining me because I've been wanting to talk to you for so long. So thanks for that.
Yo, no problem at all. I'm glad to be on your platform. Appreciate the opportunity to share.
So Duran, I was talking about, you've done so many different things, 2 decades of work, food markets, food initiatives, urban farms. You were joking when you did your TED Talk that you were vying for the longest title in TED Talk history. So if we were to ask you, what is your overall mission when you describe people what you do, and how do you describe what food justice means?
Well, my primary work is aspiring towards Black liberation. The work that I do primarily in this moment is around cultural identity, health and wellness, and social change through urban agriculture. So my overall goal is freedom for Black and brown people. But my road to hoe, so to speak, is around growing food production, and ownership of food systems by communities of color.
And why is that important? Just to explain to people, is it because if you own your own, if you can make your own food, you feed yourself, you feed your people? Why is that important?
Well, so the primary goal or the primary reason why we do this is because
We're losing your sound there, Duran. There we go.
Can you hear me? Communities
Yeah.
of color primarily. We've been at war with Western civilization for over 400 years. When we talk about the first incursion, we think about just the colonization of the Americas as kind of like the ground zero, so to speak, and the rise of the United States as a thing, and the decimation of indigenous people in the context of land justice. When King George sent colonists, or when colonists came to the continent of the Americas, they dispersed people of indigenous ancestry off of the land, and they took ownership of that land. And through policy, they made it illegal for indigenous people and for enslaved Africans to own land, right? We were brought over to this country to grow food, which gave rise to the empire of the Americas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when we contextualize that into a conversation about food justice, is important for people to understand that that act of marginalization of people classified as non-white to the benefit of people who were defined as white, set up disparity in terms of power as well as agency for those communities to support themselves, to grow for themselves, to have self-determination. And so what we do today is just a continuation of that resistance against the hegemony of Western civilization, this whole idea of a hierarchy of human value that has basically been the rubric around which all engagement by Western nations towards non-white nations exists. When we think about the term white supremacy, people often contextualize that as only like some terrorist guy with a white hood that's burning a cross in someone's yard. But white supremacy is Great Britain stealing, artifacts from an indigenous country and putting them on display in a British museum, and then charging those communities to come see, what was stolen. White supremacy is, the Constitution saying of the United States saying that Black people were 3/5 of a human, right? White supremacy is the recolonization of or the colonization of even Middle Eastern countries,
Mm-hmm.
and under the guise of freedom and democracy, right? So,
Right.
that these are the these are the
The broader,
concepts
yeah.
that we have to like contextualize this work within in order for people to really understand what it means for us to say, okay, well, we're taking ownership of a vacant lot and we're growing food for self-determination to feed our community.
Right, because you always say land is power, something you always say.
Yeah.
And because if you own your land, you can grow food for yourself, you can grow food for your family, you can live off that land and earn a living from that land.
For sure.
There's some statistics I wanted to bring up because when I saw this, I had to do a story on urban farming in the US last year. And when I saw these numbers, they really surprised me. So just for people to get a bit of context, and these are numbers from the US Department of Agriculture. So it's the government's numbers. 95% of farmland in the US is owned by white farmers. That's 95%. Only 5%, which means it's owned by people of color. Less than 2% of that is owned by Black farmers. So when you have that wide a disparity, Duran, how do you even begin to shift the balance? So what can people practically do to try and shift that balance?
Yeah, thank you for bringing up the data. In the early 1900s, what we recognize is that people of African ancestry owned over 14 million acres of land. In 2013, that number was down to, I think, something around 1.5 million acres of land. So in 100 years, almost 90% of African American land traded outside of, were lost by African American farmers. And this is not by an accident. This is not by any act of negligence by people of African ancestry. This is all deliberate consolidation of land away from people of African ancestry. The question was, what does
How
it
do you
mean?
shift the balance?
How do we shift the balance? Well, to be candid, it's a long, hard work. There are a lot of different people, a lot of different institutions that are trying to address, the lack of African American land, the policies that were enacted in the past. We got to go back, man. We got to go all the way back. I mean, let's just think about the Civil War, right? When the Civil War ended, General Sherman put out a document that declared that African Americans would get 40 acres and a mule as a part of reparation for their for their labor and as a repair or atonement for the act of enslavement. So Andrew Jackson, General Andrew Jackson, at the Andrew Lincoln, at the Lincoln was murdered, assassinated. Andrew Jackson takes presidency. He immediately dismisses the declaration by General Sherman and Lincoln and gives the land that African Americans have been given back to their former slave holders, right? So what you have is that African Americans who had fought in the Union Army in the South for their freedom, but the government of the United States denied them compensation and reparation for in the form of ownership of land and equipment and materials to actually take care of that land. So the first solution to address the disparity of lack of land ownership would have to be reparations for people of African ancestry, explicitly around land ownership. Anything else will be symbolic and just a drop in a bucket as it relates to, you know, what really builds wealth in this country. And we think about, okay.
So if people are listening and people are watching and they're like, so how do I go about doing that? Is it through voting? Is it, are there like organizations they can go to? If they want to shift the balance, what do people do practically?
So yeah. So one way, you know, advocacy for reparations through government structures is one way that individuals can help move the needle forward in that conversation. But we do not have to wait for the government to indicate that it is moving in that direction for folks to start moving land into Black hands through reparations. My sister Leah Penniman and her organization Soulfire Farm has a reparations map that they've begun to promote, which will allow for folks to identify farmers across the country that are in need of land, and folks can deed their land that they are not in use of, or if they are in use of their land, they can deed that land in title to African American farmers today, right now. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. Another tool that's being utilized is the work of the Agrarian Trust. The Agrarian Trust is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to the development of agrarian commons and making sure that Black people have access to land that is protected in a land trust or in land trusts across the country. And folks can work with the Agrarian Trust to identify land that can be donated or that can be purchased by the trust, and that land will be and is being made available to African American farmers across the country. We're doing some work with them in Richmond, Virginia, as we speak. So those are, you know, of course, the advocacy, but then, you know, working with Soulfire Farms and their database of Black farmers, as well as working with the Agrarian Trust, are direct lines that people can make to land ownership for people of African ancestry in this country.
So what we'll do is when we post this video, we'll tag the groups that you're mentioning so people can go on and have a look themselves.
For sure.
Like I said, you've done so many practical things yourself, Jerron, like food markets, urban farming, but you're doing something called the Resiliency Project.
Certainly.
I just wanted you to tell people what that is, because you're actually teaching people how to farm at home, aren't you?
Yeah, so the Resiliency Garden Project is something that evolved as a result of COVID-19. 5 months ago, we decided that instead of developing large community garden sites, we would deliver raised beds directly to community members' homes. And we've created an infrastructure for socially distanced volunteering that allows folks to deliver wood, soil, ceilings, and to build raised beds for community members that experience food insecurity. The Resiliency Garden Project is being funded primarily through the generous donations of people just like you, you know, individuals that believe in what we're doing, making contributions. We've raised almost $80,000 in the last 5 months that's allowing us to purchase the materials necessary to do the work. And we've dropped off over 230 raised beds in community all across the Richmond region. And now we're expanding into the Virginia Beach, Eastern Shoreboard of Virginia, doing the same work. So basically, someone will go on our website and place a request, and then a volunteer will be in contact with them to drop off a 6x4 raised bed. And then we have folks that'll help them with ceilings, and we're doing videos, providing people with PDFs, online resources.
On like how to farm, how to grow your food.
How to grow food, yeah, for sure, yes. And then we also run a boot camp, a monthly boot camp, where we're training people with the introduction to how to grow their own food. We do classes on Zoom, and then we do small groups, face-to-face, socially distanced on the weekend. So, yeah, that's the Resiliency Garden Project. I mean, it's definitely been an amazing experience with people sharing with us their pictures of their gardens, and people growing food for the first time, and people expressing how much of a therapeutic experience it has been for them to get in the garden and participate in that activity.
So what kinds of things are they growing? Is it like microgreens and vegetables?
People are growing all types of stuff, man. People are growing vegetables primarily, squash. I mean, it's the summer.
Wow.
So they're doing squash, tomatoes, peppers. We've seen a lot of greens. People doing collards, kale, eggplant.
That's amazing.
Yeah, corn. People doing all types of watermelon. People growing all types of stuff in their raised beds. So I mean, it's whatever seedlings they can get their hands on. We're about to transition into fall. A lot of brassicas, green leafy vegetables, onions, and things like that. So we're getting people geared up for the next season as we speak.
And Jerome, you're a farmer yourself. Obviously, you're like an urban farmer. That's what you do. So this is what you're teaching people.
Yeah. Sure.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the Happily Natural Day and the Happily Natural Festival. It's an annual festival. This year it's virtual, which means people all over the world who are tuning in can actually join in if they want.
Exactly.
Tell people what that is.
So the Happily Natural Day was founded in 2003. It's dedicated to cultural identity and loving yourself as a person of African ancestry. Every year we will have vendors, workshops, musicians, healers, cultural workers who will come to the event to network, to just be together in these kind of what we call like a liberation zone. We did it. We started in Richmond, where we had several years where we did it in Atlanta and Richmond. And we this year, of course, due to COVID, instead of doing the festival in person, we shifted and said we would do the festival virtually and stream, the content on all of our social media platforms for the population to be engaged. And we got some amazing people that'll be presenting. Aris Latham, who's a raw food culinary artist. Kalonji Changa, who is the founder of the FTP movement. We got Chef Rain Truth from out of sorry about that. And we also have Malik.
No worries.
Kikini, Leah Penniman. It's going to be an amazing experience. We got a lot of great people that are going to be presenting.
So whoever's interested, they can go onto your Instagram, or they can go on to Happily Natural Festival, and see the Instagram for all the details for that.
Sure can. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this is the fun part, Jerome. I mean, all of this has been fun for me and great. But for people who follow Not Just for Us, it's all about food and music and making people happy. Yeah. So this is a fun part. I'm going to do a quick speed round of questions with you.
Okay.
Ready?
Go.
Okay. What's your favorite microgreen?
Probably sunflower seed. Sunflower.
Oh, those are great. What's your favorite fruit?
Sorry about that. Grapes.
Grapes? Oh.
I'm going to go
I
with
thought you were going to say
Concord
watermelons. Huh?
Concord grapes.
I
was going to say Concord grapes. Those are delicious.
What is
Well,
the
watermelon is delicious too.
I saw you posting watermelons the other day. Okay,
Oh yeah.
so what is the hardest vegetable to grow?
The hardest vegetable to grow. Jeez. Um. Oh man, that's a good question. Damn, I don't know. It's probably a run-in challenge between cantaloupes, because they're very fickle, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. What's hard to grow?
I'm tripping you up. See, I can do that.
I don't know. No. Vegetable wise, I've always had trouble growing Brussels sprouts. I think like I've always had a challenge with that.
Do you like Brussels sprouts though? That's a question.
Yes, I love I love roasted Brussels sprouts. But I you know, whenever I try to grow them I'm kind of like a lazy gardener, so I set stuff and then I go away. And so I have yet to have a really good bounty of Brussels sprouts.
I've got people saying zucchini and asparagus.
Asparagus is tough. It takes a long time to establish.
Okay.
And so if you're not patient, then you might not have success with asparagus.
So what's the easiest thing to grow?
Lettuce.
Oh yeah.
It grows itself. Any greens for me is always just super easy, quick. You know, doesn't require a lot of attention. Next to that, probably I never have any difficulty with stuff like peppers and tomatoes. I mean, you know, the hardest part about tomatoes is pruning them and making sure they're trellis. But I have really good success with that. Herbs like thyme.
Really?
And oregano. Yeah, I mean, I like I said, man.
My mother has them in her balcony.
I grow them.
I don't know if they're good though.
I grow them, but I'm telling you, like, I mean, like when I'm growing lots of it.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've got someone saying lettuce is difficult in Pacific Northwest because of slugs. So I went to an urban farm in Wyoming in February. It's like a greenhouse.
Yeah.
And their biggest pride and joy was they were able to grow tomatoes inside.
Oh, yeah.
Which is amazing. Okay, next question. Is there anything you would never eat?
Never?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I'm not a big fan of like the oysters.
Really?
And like the snails, like anything like that, escargot and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's not for me.
Okay. Are you a savory tooth or a sweet tooth?
I'm a sweet tooth.
What's your favorite dessert?
Oh boy, you love it. You got some good questions. Strawberry cheesecake.
Oh, that's a goodie.
Yeah, that's a goodie.
I'm a savory tooth. You can feed me French fries in my sleep. I would eat them. Okay. Ice cream or sorbet?
Ice cream.
Are you team parsley or team cilantro? Coriander.
Cilantro. I'm a cilantro.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever had poutine?
Yes, I have had poutine. I was in Canada a couple years ago and I had poutine. Yeah, it's delicious.
It's the type of thing for people who don't know what poutine is, it's Canadian, it's from Quebec. It's like cheese curd and gravy and fries.
Yeah.
It's the type of thing you eat at 3 a.m. after a very long night. So
yeah, that's a very,
or maybe the next morning after a very long night. Okay, so if the world was ending, what would be your last meal?
Probably spaghetti, man.
Really?
Yo, I'm sorry. Like, hey, I was raised, my mom, that's the go-to meal. Like, anything that's going crazy and ham is like, I'm quick.
It's comfort food.
Yeah, comfort food. I'm going with the spaghetti.
Okay. So, again, anyone who knows Not Just Falafels, this site is about food and music. And everybody knows that I absolutely cannot cook without music. So, what song should I add to my next cooking playlist, Jerron?
Curtis Mayfield's The People Darker Than Blue.
Okay, I'm going to cook with that, and I'm going to IG Live you next time I do it.
That's the hit. That is
I'll make spaghetti, listen to that, and I'll call you.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Okay, last question. When you put food on your plate, does everything have to be separated, or can your food touch?
My food can touch. I have a problem with that.
Right answer. That's the right answer.
Nice.
Duran Chavis, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you,
It's
man.
been a pleasure and a privilege.
Yo, appreciate you sharing and having me on your platform, man. Thank you. This is delightful.
Thank you. And what I'm going to do for everybody who's been listening, I'm going to add on all the tags that you mentioned if people want to look into what's going on. And you've got your Happily Natural Festival coming up.
Yeah, man. Please come
next month.
In, man. Check us out, man. I hope to see you there.
Yeah,
we'll
you'll see me. I'll be making spaghetti and I'll come on.
Very nice.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody who joins.
Yeah,
take care.
And thank you so much. Peace.